Odysseus. I was a soldier in the Trojan War and the king of Ithaca.
So just tell us a bit about what happened after the Trojan War.
Now, a few months shorter, we sailed off again, and in a few days, arrived in a rather strange island. Believe me, I know my islands. This one wasn't too familiar to me. When I sent men out to scout the islands, I came to realize that these strange, odd lotus eaters would feed my crew their food, and in return, they would completely lose their will to go home.
All right. So, how would you handle that situation? In my great wisdom, got all my crew back onto the ship, and we sailed away as fast as possible.
Odysseus can be full of himself, but he was not lying about what happened there. We would have stayed forever. I can't describe it to you now, the feeling that food gave us. After eating it, nothing else mattered. It makes me shudder just thinking about it. If Odysseus hadn't gotten us to sail away, I doubt I'd be speaking to you now.
What did you do after leaving the Lotus Eaters?
Me and my crew sailed a little while longer before arriving at another island. We got off our boat and saw a place of living. The host of the home, rather big by the way, wasn't home at the moment. So we decided to do him a service, and instead of making him serve us food, we served ourselves.
You ate his food? Just walked in and ate it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's only tradition to feed heroes of war.
And you said he was big. How big are we talking?
He was fairly large in size. I don't know if I'd call it an impressive height, but it's noticeable.
Fairly large in size? He was a giant, a savage. He had one eye, one massive eye, and smelled like goat dung.
When he found me and my crew in his home, and this completely astounded me, he attacked us and killed 2 of my men with his bare hands. So as a means of revenge, we sharpened a sharp spike that we crafted from a tree right into his eye as he slept. It was incredible. When he awoke, I cleverly announced that my name was Nobody. So when he tried to call for help, oh glories. When he called for help, he said that nobody was attacking him.
Odysseus was so proud of himself about that nobody idea.
Odysseus, what did you do then? Did he attack you?
He tried. Fortunately, the blind don't fight extremely well. We managed to get back to our boats and sail away. After being blown off by the wind, we arrived at another island that I had my men scout once more. At that point, someone from my crew ran back and informed me that my crew had been turned into pigs.
I was in my home singing like goddesses do and weaving a most impressive fabric, when at once I heard a herd of men calling at me. I knew that my worthless guard wolves and lions had probably shown affection towards the men instead of protecting me. They are worthless. So I was afraid.
The goddess afraid?
Well, I had previously received word that a man would enter my home and be immune to my potions, and I feared he was among those calling me. Nonetheless, I put on a charming smile and made their acquaintance. Then they all came rushing in. They were nice enough men, but I was in the mood for mischief. I had my servants prepare a lavish meal, but I added my own little touch to it. I added a secret potion that would turn them all into swine.
I decided to go confront Circe myself. Of course, I'm not very familiar with her magical ways, so Hermes came and offered me some help. He told me about this plant that could be used to prevent her from using her magic on me. I ingested that and went off to fight against Circe.
To my pleasant surprise, more entertainment came knocking on my door. A single man approached, and with the satisfaction that I had previously gotten out of the last encounter, I planned to do the same to this new man. In all my excitement, I forgot about my warning that a man immune to my potions would come along, and as I raised my wand, he raised his sword, and I knew immediately that he was Odysseus.
Her magic did not work, and when I attacked her, she hugged my knees and asked me to sleep with her.
So did he try to kill you?
It's not death he wanted. He wanted to make a deal. I convinced him to spare me and sleep with me instead of using his sword.
You slept with her? Don't you have a wife back home?
Yes, and my heart will always remain Penelope, but a hero's got to do what a hero's got to do.
Circe turned your men into swine. How did you end up trusting her?
Oh, that's easy. She slept with me.
Is that a thing? Like, you just trust her because she sleeps with you?
like you?
Of course, everyone knows, and you should keep this in mind for the future, that any woman who does not sleep with a hero like myself is most definitely wicked.
Seriously? You've got to be kidding, right?
I then had my servants spoil him, but he seemed to be caught up in the sound of his squealing friends. So I turned them all back into humans, making some slight changes so they were younger, more handsome, and taller to please my eyes. I liked all the attention from the men, and they stayed and were treated well for a year. It wasn't until Odysseus came to me and requested to leave that I wished them gone.
Where did they go? Back to Ithaca?
I first told them of a journey to the underworld that they must make. I wasn't sure he would find what he needed, but I thought it'd be a good experience for him.
Circe suggested that we go to an island not too far off and visit a place where we may speak to the dead Tiresias. I went to talk to him. I didn't get the information I needed. A complete waste of time.
So you went back to Circe's island?
Yes, I went back and she told us how to get home.
After the underworld, he visited me again, and I gave him instructions on where to go next. And just like that, I disappeared, as goddesses do, and he did too. Odysseus, the year we spent together will always be in my heart. Well, that and the 3 sons I had with him.
But you didn't make it home.
No, I didn't. Not yet. So we encountered quite a few creatures while we traveled. One of the more interesting ones were the sirens. Now, no man has ever heard the siren song and remained alive, except for one man, me. To do so, I had my crew put wax into their ears and tie me to the ship posts.
Why didn't you put wax in your ears as well? Wouldn't that have been easier?
It wasn't so much about making it easy. I just wanted to be the first one to do it. I took great pride in surviving the female beast call.
All right, so what happened after the sirens?
Well, unfortunately, we came to an island where my crew found Helios's cattle. Against my wishes, my crew decided to kill and eat the cattle. So when we left the islands, my ship sunk. My whole crew died, and I was left drifting on a raft. It was, I can't quite remember how long I was there, but it must have been days, if not weeks. Eventually, I washed up on the shore of a large island. It was where I met the goddess Calypso. Calypso was a very alluring goddess. Of course, I still love Penelope, but for 7 years, I was forced to remain there and sleep with Calypso.
How did you escape?
She just let me go.
Did you really tell Zeus to his face that he had a lofty heart in your first council?
I did. Poor Odysseus had been cursed by fate for so long, and Zeus was not moving a finger to help. I thought Zeus had simply forgotten of Odysseus. Zeus explained that it was actually Poseidon who was so against him because Odysseus blinded Polyphemus, Poseidon's son.
I don't really have to explain myself, but the reason that I did destroy Odysseus' ship and his entire crew was because of what he did to Helios's cattle. I didn't really pay much attention to Odysseus after that. I decided that if my brother wanted revenge on him, then he could easily do it himself. There is no need for me to intervene.
In the second council, you were the one who convinced Zeus to do something to free Odysseus from Calypso's island, correct?
Yes, I was. The gods all had a council, except for Poseidon, that is. I don't like having to ask others for help, but I realized the wisest decision was to appeal to Zeus. Simply a strategy, and I succeeded. Zeus told Hermes to inform Calypso that Odysseus had to return to his home. Humility can reap great rewards.
After offending my son and my brother not wanting to do a single thing about it, I decided to take things into my own hands. In result, I destroyed his raft and left him floating at sea. I destroyed his entire crew and his ship. You missed one. I'm watching you.
I sailed on a raft towards home. Unfortunately, my raft was destroyed by the sea and ended up washed on the shore of an island. Almost died as well. In the end, I managed to throw myself to safety. This is where I met the lovely princess Nausicaa.
So, start by telling me how you know Odysseus.
Well, I had a dream, and in it my friend convinced me to go to the river to wash my clothes. My handmaids and I were just frolicking around naked, waiting for our clothes to dry, and there he was. He just crawled out of the woods, and he was naked too.
I went up to Nausicaa and asked her for help.
Well, he went to wash up, and when I saw him next, it was so weird. I instantly fell in love with him. He was gorgeous. My heart is like literally fluttering right now just thinking about it. Anyways,
I went to see the king queen of the island. Now, I went in, unseen for the most part, and placed my hands upon the queen's knees and beseeched her for help. Both the king and the queen were happy to help, which, I mean, of course they would. I'm a hero of war after all.
And so they took you home?
Yes. They held a celebration where I displayed my great strength, and they displayed their wonderful dancers. I very much enjoyed it.
he told some good stories, my father gave him a boat, and we never saw him again. Then we got punished by the gods. It was probably for helping him, whatever, but it was worth it for the few days I got to spend with that amazing man.
Telemachus, I know you were busy while your father was gone. How did your adventure go?
Well, I was enjoying watching my inheritance drain away with my mother's lovely suitors. My father's old friend Mentes visited me and told me to search out my father. Mentes told me to first go to Pylos and visit King Nestor, then to visit Sparta and King Menelaus. Mentes even provided me with a crew and a ship for the journey. Now I think about it, Mentes' help was definitely seemed divinely ordained.
You were the one who convinced Telemachus to leave and not Mentes?
Telemachus did not exactly know it was me. I disguised myself as an old friend of Odysseus, Mentes. The boy needed to become a man, and he needed to discover for himself that his father is alive.
Penelope, how did you feel when you finally discovered that Telemachus had sailed away to gain news of Odysseus?
I felt heartbroken. I was already grieving for my dear Odysseus, and now I had to worry about my one and only son's safety. I was a mess.
Telemachus, tell me about what happened after you set out.
Well, Mentes, the crew, and I made it to Pylos, where we were received by King Nestor. King Nestor graciously received us, and he told me about the Greeks' perilous journeys home. Many made it back after some difficulty, but apparently what was waiting for them at home was not ideal. I had no idea that the mighty Agamemnon was felled by an adulterous wench and her lover, but justice prevailed at the hands of Agamemnon's son Orestes.
So you met with Menelaus at Sparta?
Not only Menelaus, but Helen as well. She recognized me immediately because of my likeness to my father. And Menelaus went on to tell of his great friendship with my father. Menelaus went on to praise my father for his cunning, valor, and wisdom.
When Telemachus came to see you, what did you tell him?
When Telemachus came to me, I told him of his father's exploits in the war, and told him of my journey home. I also told him all I knew of Odysseus and how he was trapped on Calypso's island. I was the one who gave Telemachus hope by telling his father was alive.
So did you stay with Menelaus a while?
Actually, no. Athena appeared to me in a dream and told me to travel back to Pylos, and I sailed back to Ithaca as soon as possible, and that's what I did. When the gods tell you to do something, it's best to do it. After I had reached Ithaca, I immediately went out to my swineherd Eumaeus, my old friend, but I felt a little guilty because he already had company. Upon arriving back to Ithaca, I went to meet my swineherd. There I told him a tale of my travels, and we ate a good meal.
This man came in, and I was happy to share a meal with him, and he told me all these fantastic stories about his travels. And when he revealed himself to be Odysseus, I was amazed. Odysseus was back.
Eumaeus had a stranger with him. Who was this stranger?
At first, the man was dressed as a beggar, but after a while I looked at him, and his appearance was different. It was almost surreal. He looked as a god. But then he revealed himself to me. And after a while, my son came in. I just couldn't believe it. It was my son. I didn't tell him who I was at first, but it wasn't long before I could no longer keep myself from doing so. My father, at home at last, embraced me for the first time in my life. My prayers were granted. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I just had my father back. I had my dad back. I didn't even want to let go, but our reunion couldn't last forever. We had much work to do.
After your father revealed himself, what did you do?
The obvious thing, of course, we discussed how to deal with the suitors and take back my inheritance. So I went back to my palace and stayed there for a few days as a beggar. During the time, I used my superior cleverness to begin scheming my way to victory. Of course, the suitors made a few jabs at me every now and then, but it only helped to invoke the murderous fire inside me.
So why did you take this poor beggar man under your wing so quickly?
I felt a compassion towards him. He claimed to know Odysseus very well. He made me think so much of him, and his kind words and compelling descriptions brought tears to my eyes and made me weep for him anew. He was someone I could share my grief with.
How are you going to take back your inheritance?
I returned back to my estate, and after meeting with my mother, we began to get things prepared. My father, disguised as a beggar, infiltrated his house to observe things for himself. I gave my father food, but those wicked suitors objected to having a beggar eating with them. That filthy man, Antinous, even dared to strike the king of Ithaca. Even now, just thinking about it makes my blood boil.
I heard that you had many suitors vying for you, and you devised a method for choosing one of them. How did that work?
Well, I told the suitors that I was weaving a shroud for Odysseus' father, and when I had completed it, I would choose one of them.
Oh. How good are you at weaving?
I'm actually a pretty good weaver, but I was prolonging it and playing a trick on the suitors. I would weave and work all day, and then I would undo all the work I had done during that time.
Woo! That is kind of awesome. Can you describe the competition you devised for the suitors to finally win you as a bride?
I was inspired to create a competition where whichever suitor could string the great bow of King Odysseus with the greatest ease and could shoot an arrow cleanly through 12 axes would win me, and I would be their bride.
So, Penelope proposed a bow competition, and Telemachus joined in on it?
Right, so Penelope proposed the competition to see who would take her hand. And Telemachus did almost try to complete the task himself.
But you stopped him?
Yeah, it was just a bit strange. If he had won, that would mean my wife and his mother would then become his wife. That really wasn't okay with me. I wasn't quite sure what Telemachus was thinking there. That just wouldn't have been right.
How did you defeat the suitors?
Well, it wasn't just me. Telemachus, my swineherd, mentor, and some of my servants all helped as well, but I did most of the work.
Why didn't you begin fighting with Odysseus immediately? Why did you wait?
A goddess has her reasons. I was testing Odysseus. Eventually, I helped him finish the battle. I did not want to do everything for him. If gods did all the work, no man would ever be able to become a hero.
My unfaithful servants also told the suitors where the weapons were, so now we had less of an advantage. Eventually, however, with my mighty bow, I killed them all. Afterwards, I had my loyal maid tell me which of the other female servants had slept with suitors. I then had all of them clear up the dead bodies before I hung them all.
You killed all of them?
Yes, well, all the unfaithful ones.
And there was a war afterward, correct?
Well, I wouldn't really call it a war. We had a battle, but it was very short. We battled with everything we had, and then Athena appeared before all of us in her infinite and godly glory.
You were the one who put an end to the bloodshed, though, right?
A small group was coming to take revenge on Odysseus for killing the suitors. Odysseus and his son would have killed them all, but the violence needed to stop, so I put an end to it. I restored the peace. As I said before, I dislike meaningless bloodshed. Revenge has to stop somewhere.
Do you have any regrets about helping Odysseus?
Multiple storytellers.
What?
I couldn't truly believe that Odysseus was actually there, returned to me. When I got downstairs, I decided to test him and discovered that it was truly my great husband Odysseus. I went into joyful shock and ran to him in tears, filled with so much joy to have my husband back.
After that, I had my Penelope back, I had my son back, and my home back, I had Ithaca back. Everything turned out okay. It was a long and difficult journey, but now it's over.
Lost but marching on, like we've always known the trail.